Hello there, Josh here from Racing to Profit. I hope you can hear me. I'm recording this about 9:30 Friday morning with a look at the 431 from Market Rasen. As you know, well, my analytical mind and headspace has totally turned to the jumps now. So with that in mind, I'm going to leave Ascot and Championsdale, leave that mudfest to others. Instead, I'm going to jump over to Market Rasen, which, well, possibly oddly for this time of year, I'm not quite sure. I think they've been watering, which is some indication that the ground is good. These videos are going to be, well, at least one every week as the season hots up, looking at the kind of feature handicap on the Saturday. Here we've got a Class 2, which is kind of the best jumps race this Saturday, so I thought I would take a look at it. Handicap chase, 2 miles, 5 furlongs, 89 yards. Yeah, on decent ground. No soft in the going, and I don't think there's any rain forecast. So that's the race in front of us. The first thing I'm going to do actually is jump over to Horse Race Base because this is a trends race. In the sense that it's got some historical record. As always, they're only ever sort of a guide, and these go all the way back to 2004. So what's that, the last 60 renewals or so? And you can kind of, I suppose, as always, pause, note down, have a look at different things you may want to in front of you. You can see, finishing position, not much in there. Horses that have fallen and pulled up last time have done okay. You're talking small numbers when you get out of kind of the top 6 or 7. As always with this kind of analysis, I like to look at win percentages and place percentages. The horse age, you can see every winner has been, 6 to 9. You wouldn't necessarily be put off a 5-year-old, only 4 have tried, 1 have placed. 10-year-old plus, not many have tried, but you can see the win percentages. Obviously 6-year-olds in terms of win percentage and place percentage against the number of runners, number of 6-year-olds competing have done best. You can kind of look down at the weight carried. I think this one includes jockey claims, but again there's different pointers there. It's a 10-runner race, so it's not one to go, certainly not one to go mad over with a kind of stats and trends perspective. And the horse's profile may be far more important. But there's various different things you can look at and muse over if you wish when casting your eye down here. There's a trainer records in total. So Peter Bowen, 3 from 22, 6 places. That's since 2004. Curtis is one that doesn't have a runner. Tom George took this last year, I think, doesn't have a runner. Hobbs, neither. Emma Lavelle, Sophie Leach, they don't have runners either. Dr. Newland has a runner, 1 from 7, 2 places. Who else have we got down here? I don't think John Joe or Pipe have a runner. And so on and so forth. Nigel Twiston-Davies, 1 from 12, 3 places. So as always, when looking at trainer records, he's got a run as well. So yeah, there's one for Peter Bowen, Dr. Newland, and Nigel Twiston-Davies. I was going to look at Paul Nicholls because I should think his may be high in the market. We'll see. 0 from 8, 3 places. So maybe this is a race that some trainers look at and they know they've done well in before and may aim a horse at it or pick it out as a target in which to bring the horse back, especially on their seasonal return. If I jump back to Gigi's, as always, the aim of these videos is to try and talk through the race and the horses in a way which is useful to you, so notepads at the ready. Hopefully I may say something which helps you solve the puzzle, or in any case may note down something of use for your general approach to racing in the coming days and weeks, maybe especially on some of the stats front. So first of all, as always, I am, when looking at the Gigi's race cards, I'm just going to click the Instant Expert. This tells us what the horse has done, what they've achieved against today's race conditions. You can sort by various different things. I'll actually have a look at some of these other options because you can use this dashboard in front of you, going class, course, distance, field size, to look at actually the jockey, trainer and the sire as well if you so wish. Sire is probably less important, well, is less important in my mind with handicap chases, because the horse normally has some form in the book, but of course when stepping up to extreme distances, for example, or ground they may not have tried, that can be useful, I suppose. But you can see here, looking at all of horses' runs in all codes, so you can see those with the record and the going. Nichols has a question. He's got some form from France. All his form has had soft in the going. If he lines up, you would assume Nichols thinks it's safe, but decent ground is a question, more of an unknown, because it is his first run on good. Whether or not he's wanted good all his life, we shall see. First run in Class 2 in the UK as well, but he's only had a couple of runs. We'll look at him a bit more depth and a few others later on. So yeah, you can see there that those that have Class 2 form, Louis Vacpouch, I should maybe change this to Class 1, because then that would cover kind of graded runs. So yeah, you can see down there those that have kind of proven winning form at Class 1 and 2. Louis Vacpouch, Fidux, Mellow Ben, Beggar's Wish, a shocker. So in terms of those proven in the class, and some of the others have had the odd go in the class, that's a question. If I flip to chases, so those with Class 1, Class 2 chase form, in all conditions, this is winning form. Again, you can see there's 3 horses which have winning form in the class. And for those of you who like proven form in the class of the race, those 3 might be the ones you immediately home in on. Like I said, as always in any race, you're weighing up what you know, what you don't know, the knowns, the unknowns, and you're weighing that up against price, and whether the unknowns may be a reason, for example, distance, for why the horse may improve, and relish it and kind of then look well handicapped, as an example, especially if they're more lightly raced, unexposed. Red Risk is an unknown because he hasn't raced at this level, certainly in the UK. Hasn't raced at Market Race, and Beggar's Wish is the kind of other end of the scale. He ticks every box in terms of being there and done it. Ground is fine, class is fine. He's a course winner, possibly course and distance, I think. Distance, I should check actually. Sorry. No, I was just going to see if he had won this race before, but he hasn't, as you can see there. So yeah, and he's £8 below his last winning mark, which was 142. So whatever he does today, in terms of chases, and I can click that to handicap chases and go further, in terms of winning record, I'll touch on Peter Bowen shortly. He is a horse worth noting. I don't know the odds yet of this race. The market hasn't been priced up, and that's never a bad thing, actually. Going through a race without having any idea on what the market is, part of me is hoping Beggar's Wish is going to be a big price, because I'll go into him in a bit more detail shortly, but because of what you can see there, actually, and his handicap mark, there's a chance he might be put in at a big price for various reasons, so that he may be interesting. Dan Skelton's horse here is proven in the class, unproven over the distance. I'll have a look at him. He runs and shapes as if he's worth a go over it, and it might be what he wants now, but that's obviously a judgment call, unknown, you weigh up against a subjective evaluation of price and value. And he's £2 below his last winning mark, so he's well handicapped in handicap chases. And you can go down there and see various others. Mellow Ben is on his last winning mark, so in theory might be ready to strike again at some point, especially if connections have, got his mark down. So that one's interesting. Luck of the Draw is on his last winning mark, so again of some interest, course form. So you can see that dashboard in front of you, and you can obviously pause, do what you want. Place stats you can see there. Fidux kind of place-wise has done okay here, especially at the course, and in conditions, we'll touch on in a minute. He chased home really super in the summer plate, and she stuffed him, thankfully, for us who have a small swish of the tail in that horse. I'll touch on her in a moment actually as well. So yes, that's the Internet Expert. You can obviously do what you want with that. Pace is always important in chases. If you 67%, I think, when I last did research, of all handicap chases are won by horses who lead or race prominently. So in this kind of bit here, that's never a bad kind of shortlisting mechanism or weigh in. If you wanted to go through handicap chases on a card, maybe class 3 and above or class 4, I tend to leave class 5, but that's personal preference. And, there's obviously various pace maps, free resources. You get them for free as a free registered user on Sundays and Mondays on GG's, but looking for those horses and making a case if you find one you think is going to get an easy lead or be in the right place. Obviously with these pace maps and things, you can look at the record on decent ground, field size, this course and distance. There's quite a sample size there. Being kind of mid-division held up isn't an awful negative, especially when you're looking at kind of place percentages. So it's fairly even here in terms of the course. I always like one to be up here. So Courtmaster is going to try and make all again. We shall see if Harry Cobden and Nichols, if the horse runs, which that means they're deemed the ground is fine. If he'll track, he'll be up there. Danny Cook likes to be aggressive. I think he'll be kind of pushing and prominent. Newlands can be. Beggar's Wish is back down here. I would be surprised if he's here to run his race, and he's kind of ready if Sean Bowen didn't have him prominently. I don't expect him to be too far back, and he's kind of raced up there before. Of course, remember these data here is based on their last 4 runs. Kind of gets these averages and place percentages in the race. Louis Vat Paris is normally ridden more patiently, as is Fidux, and a shocker can be as well. So that's the kind of pace map which you can muse over and add into any deliberations. We then move on to the race card. You can kind of look at the trainers in form. Paul Nicholls is on fire, 13 from 30, 20 places, still 7% above market expectations. I think some of his are starting to be overbet now because everyone knows Paul Nicholls is on fire. But of course, that's never a bad thing, having a yard in such good form. On the flip side, Phil Kirby, 2 from 54 the last 30 days, 0.25. This time of year is always tricky when you're looking at trainer form, because obviously plenty of these will be having their first run of the season. They may need the run. And, sometimes as you get deeper in the season, you're using trainer form to judge whether or not the yard may have issues, whether or not the yard as a whole and the horses as a string have not kind of come into their own and are not running well for whatever reason. This time of year a bit tricky. The place percentages can help. Phil Kirby hasn't 30 from 437. He has a lot of runners, and clearly has a lot of horses now. But there's work to do on that win percentage. 20% below market expectations, which may be no bad thing from the kind of numbers, of course. But this might be a big season for him in terms of firing out more winners and wanting to track better horses. We shall see. You can see the course record there. So some questions over that form. The Chris Gordon yard are going well, as you can see there. Peter Bowen I will touch on. Trainer jock in the last 30 days, 3 from 15. He is worth touching on just because the yard are just coming back to themselves now. So the last year, 5 from 175, 29 places, 2.86. 3 of those 5 winners in the last year have come in the last 30 days, 2 of them in the last 14. They've clearly had issues. They must have had virus issues, illness in the yard, bad batches of hay, oilseed rape planted in the vicinity of the training facility. All these kind of things can affect a horse's health, especially their respiratory system. So they look like they're back. Of course, it could be that he had a lot of badly handicapped horses, didn't attract enough new blood to the yard. That can be another reason, especially in handicaps. Obviously, all these things can be cyclical, but those stats were so bad in terms of the win percentage, I would think something was up. So, yeah, they're a yard worth watching. I'm not quite sure how many want deep winter mud. Beggar's Wish is fine in such conditions, but that's something to note moving forwards. It's good to see that yard back in a bit of form, and Sean Bowen is riding very, very well as well. Last 30 days, 10 from 41, 18 places. And he, doesn't get kind of loads of really, really good rides these days, bar obviously for Harry Fry, who's he's associated with, and obviously he rides for his dad. has first refusal on Peter's horses as well, provided Harry doesn't need him. I think that's how that works, but other trainers use him as well, of course. Sue Smith hasn't hit the road running, no shot for October. Lots of hers generally do need the run, especially over fences. You can see here the record has 60-day plus, 5 from 96 with those that have had 60 days or more off. That's in the last couple of years. So there's always questions over fitness, and it's never a bad thing assuming they may need the run. Newlands are going well, as you can see there. So yeah, they're in form. Course record half decent. Twister's a bit iffy, in and out. Again, some of his, sadly for this time of year, given I've got a couple of angles for him, plenty of them look like they might be needing the run, and they might be a bit behind, but we shall see. He's had the odd winner, of course, and they're not going along kind of badly. What have we got? Dan Skelton, they're going okay. Of course, he has so many runners. They're kind of never really in red hot form as such, certainly not October through to April, but they're never really out of form either. He's obviously a very good trainer, can get them fit. Courtmaster, well, the horse won 16 days ago, so in a way any kind of trainer form in terms of their recent form is a bit irrelevant in that sense, but of course looking at track records and various other things can always be interesting. So that's the kind of that element. You've got, as I tick around 16 minutes, you've got, what is the horse doing differently? That's always a question I like to ask, and you're trying to use that as a reason for why they may be about to improve, or is that a reason why the trainer's getting the handicap marked down if they think they're kind of weighted too high now. Red Risk is up in class, second run in the handicap. Phil Kirby's is down 1 grade. Fidux is up 1 from his last run. Beggar's Wish is down. Ravenhill down 1 class. Rosie Haas up in class. Luck of the Draw up in class. Second run after a wind up for Courtmaster. That worked well last time. So there are the different things you can look at. There's different, like I said, various different things you can look at in terms of trainer here. I am going to, what am I going to jump over to also? I'll let that load. On Horse Race Base, you've got, you can see the ratings there. As always in handicap chases, these are, some of these ratings have been there and done it, especially if horses have been off the track for a long time or had issues. They can be down here. That's Beggar's Wish, an example there, which I'll touch on in a moment. So yeah, you can obviously use those. Being in these kind of upper echelons is never a bad thing, but yeah, and making a case, as I've said before in previous videos. What else do I want to look at? I can look at class. I just like this dashboard. You can kind of see those that have kind of run at a higher class. If I look at chases, this kind of highlights what I was saying before. On the Instant Expert in GG's, but you can see those with winning form at class 2 and class 1 that aren't listed in grade 3 and higher. Mellow Ben, Beggar's Wish, Shocker. So they're the kind of been there and done it at this level. Some of the others in terms of winning form over fences have to prove they're up to class 2 level, although of course as you look at this race in more depth, it's not necessarily the deepest of class 2s as such. So that's that. What else you can look at? Yeah, so this is the trainer record for the kind of last year in handicaps. Decent ground, class 2. You can see various different things there. Skelton does okay, and so on and so forth. That's the last couple of years. You can look at jockey and do various different things as well. So yeah, I kind of wanted the first 20 minutes of this, well, to kind of only be 20 minutes, I suppose, but to talk through those different things that you can use to help solve the puzzle yourself. And for those of you, these are jockey kind of stats, which you can see there. For those of you who want to watch me or listen to me even talk through some of the horses, that's what I'm going to try and spend the next 10 minutes or so. But yeah, hopefully that first 20 minutes looking at some of those issues there, the Instant Expert, the pace, trainer form, as you can see there, some of the other different pointers here. They're trainer stats, trainer jockeys. You can see there for Gordon Cannon. For that's what else have we got here? Trainer jockey course 5 years. So they're things that you can note for now and for the future. Those kind of stats and ways in. Trainer jockey, Hammond and Newland here in the last few years. So there's different things there you can hopefully note. And I've said something of interest, but without 20 minutes, that's the first part of that bit done. For those of you who aren't bored to tears yet, I am going to talk through some of the horses. Do pause if you want, go and make a cup of tea, and hopefully this may be of interest. I'm going to jump over to Horse Race Base for this, actually, mainly because I've used both for ages now, and my eyes visually in terms of the profiler tool, though Gigi's has a very good profile tool that I should use a bit more. But if we just run through some of these, Louis Vac-Pouch, if I use this profiler, the green line is kind of the conditions they're in. Market Rasen's got good form. You can look at the kind of handicap mark down here. The bit I do want to focus on is he's needed the run every time he's run for all connections. That's now his third trainer, moved by this particular owner. So fitness is a big question, big unknown, as is class in terms of proven. And you could argue the mark is on the high side. He is 8. He's only had 7 runs over fences. This run at Cheltenham was okay, which makes me think he could have a decent chase in him. Whether or not they want to get the mark down, I don't know. I think he has ability. He can be ridden patiently. This owner likes a bet and likes a punt would be the polite way of saying it. Whether or not the day is the day, given that record, given his it's his first run in 219 days, that might be a reason you actually just cross him off, although that run at Cheltenham gives some indication he has some ability, and he is lightly raced over fences. So whether they can win a chase with him this season, we shall see. I would hope it's not today because of that fitness question. I can click on Court Master. I'm going down how these are kind of rated in Horse Race Base ratings. You can see now, got a question at this mark, question at the class, but this is only 3 from 4 over fences. Ticks most boxes, right-handed, first run at the track, but ground is fine, fit, in form, won last time out. You would assume is probably going to be near the head of the market because of that, but he is up in class. As you can see there, he's up 1 class. Early season winning form is always maybe treated with more caution, in the sense that plenty of horses in these races when you're running could need the run. As you can see here, most of these were having, quite a few of them were having their first start of the season. I don't think this was necessarily a deep race. He won it okay, has gone up £4. The RPR, which I've talked about before, isn't eye-popping against that run necessarily, but he's lightly raced over fences, so there could be more to come, of course. So I'm not going to talk through these in a way to put you kind of point you towards one horse to definitely back them or definitely cross off a horse, but talk about some of the things which obviously catch my eye, and you can use such musings in any way you please. So that's that. He does have the odd question. I kind of think last time may have been the time to catch him, but like I said, this isn't necessarily the strongest of class 2s, and if a few of these need the run, that improves his chance. So that's him. Red Risk is only down as 2 runs in the UK. You can look at his kind of racing post. Both Horse Race Base and Gigi's don't really take account of French form, so it's always kind of worth looking somewhere else to try and kind of find that. He does have form in France. That's all on soft. He has a question for me. Obviously, the ground is a question. Fitness, I don't think, will be a problem, given the yard. He has been quite lightly raced, though, since they got him. It could be he's best fresh. I don't think that was a great race at Ludlow. It was soft. They seemed to dawdle. It seemed to fall apart a bit. He did do a 147 RPR, though, so that's one of those eye-poppers against the mark they ran off at the time. He was whacked up to 144, but he's 5. He is Yeah, lightly raced for Nichols in the UK, lightly raced over fences. I wouldn't be shocked if he's near the head of the market given the trainer form, but he does have the odd question and the odd unknown, including that handicap marked, including the ground, including fitness. Obviously, first run at the track. It's the furthest he's run over also, and this might be the first time he's had to have a proper race because I don't think he really did at Ludlow. It seemed to be the only one to kind of not hit fences and run his race, but so you can pick holes, which isn't a bad thing. Ravenhill Road, 9 years old. Can we assume he needs the run because it's the yard? He has won fresh before. I think that was when trained with Brian Ellison. The first run for Sue Smith last year of the season, plugged on, ran okay. What can we look at? I mean, he has his proven stamina. He's won from 8 3 places over the fences. Is there more to come? He is on a career high mark as a 9-year-old, so that's a question. That's something for him to prove. 133, £6 above that win here, which wasn't a great race really, as you can see there. 1 from 16 since. So they're different things. The yard form a bit iffy, and they tend to need the run. Are those things, given his age, reasons to cross him off, or to want a big price, or bigger price, I suppose. But I think he's got questions to prove. Arguably, they've all got questions and things to prove in this race, which does make it feel like it's open enough. Fidux for Alan King. Conditions are fine. I think the mark's okay. Class is okay. You could argue this is not a summer plate, and if I look at that, when he chased home or really super thumped him, the plans with her are, if the rain stays away and Aintree stays dry enough, hopefully she'll take a chance in the Old Rowan. A week on Sunday, and that will be a proper test for her, which will be exciting. Whether or not she's out the handicap or not, we shall see, and we'll see who lines up. But we hope the rain stays away. But that summer plate is working out okay. You could argue with this horse, he's been running in better races than this, and you can see that they've worked out fairly well. Super Ran followed up on the flat for us, having got worked up, and you can put a line through that Stratford effort pre-race. Solomon Gray came out and bolted up since. Imperial Presence has won a couple of times since, including beating Fidux at Stratford here. The question you've kind of got for him, I suppose, looking at those races there, is why is he suddenly going to step forward? Is a repeat of these performances good enough? I'm not quite sure. Does he need more? What is the reason why he's going to suddenly show more? 4th run of the season. At least he's fit. I don't think he fully stayed that trip last time out necessarily. But he's got questions. He's kind of been there and done it, and hasn't quite been good enough the last twice. That kind of makes you think, while he may be solid, and on those efforts kind of each way solid, and there are 10 runners in the race, does he need more? Possibly. And so that, I suppose that's where my thinking with him is at the moment. I should say I need to go watch through some videos and kind of firm up the thoughts, I suppose. Luck of the draw, what do I want to say about him? He seems to be best after a break. You can see there, best fresh, 3 from 4, 3 places on his seasonal return. Not so good with quicker returns, up in class. He is back. He is well handicapped again to do some damage. The course is fine. He did run okay to a point on his return. If twisters have been needing them, needing the run a bit, you could argue he may come on for that, but he's up in class. 20th runs, 13 over fences, is something with kind of better handicapped or more likely race going to come. You can see he won on his seasonal return last season, the season before that, and then never really followed up. Whether that's because the handicap then got him, I'm not quite sure. But it could be his best fresh, and if he wasn't going to win here, although from a tough mark and big weight, I suppose, maybe that was his chance. Would you have liked to have seen more? That's the question. They're the questions for him because of his record fresh. But again, he's, in terms of ground, track and trip, no problem. Class is a question. But I go back to saying whether or not this is the strongest of Class 2s, possibly not. Maybe on paper competitive enough. Mellow Ben ran in this race last year, also coming into it fit. Ground not a problem, good to soft, in my view, unless it was softer than ideal for him. I don't think an excuse there, but he was on 145, and now today he's on 135. So that's a his mark is down. You can see the kind of profile there, ticks a few boxes, but at the same time he has questions, including going right-handed. 0 from 8, 1 place. There is a question going this way round. Obviously you can look at handicaps, because some of those he may have just been outclassed in non-handicaps. So 0, 0, 7, 1 place. Over fences, they're the different things you can look at, and you can do this in the profile tool on Gigi's as well. And yeah, so he's got a question going right-handed, I think. And he was well stuffed in this last year, and he hasn't done much on his last 2 runs, although the ground probably did go against him last time. He probably needed it on his return at Stratford. So, on this Fontwell effort here, off 135, back down to that mark. Soupy Soups, that was an okay form. Was it after that he ran quite well in the Badger Ales? Possibly, I think it was. So, there's some okay form there, and the yard are going well. Whether or not the ground and the yard form, and, it could be that this has been the plan. Let's get his mark down. Let's run him back to a track which he knows, and he's kind of, run okay here before, but nothing more than that. But that effort there makes me think we shall see. But at least his mark is down, and he's got better ground, and he's fit and he's in form, and so is the yard. So, he does have some positives there. Yeah, back down to his last winning mark. What else have we got? A Shocker's interesting. Obviously not exactly lightly raced, 8-year-old's 30th career run. This will be 4 from 13 over fences. Ground is fine. Back down into kind of winning handicap mark range. Class is fine. Has won after big break before. Let's just have a look. You can look at the profile kind of down here. Yeah, won last season, made 372 days off, so can clearly be readied. If you go back and look through some of his form, I'm yet to watch the videos, but you can look at some of the kind of write-ups. I wonder, he's got stamina to prove, or he has to prove that he stays this trip. Whether or not he's been outpaced because of class and the race conditions in some of these races. I think there's if you look at this Kempton, when second 4-2 kept on same pace, I need to watch that to see if he flattened out or was staying on. That's the kind of where watching replays can help. Whether or not he just definitely won't stay, or because he's got a bit older, it could be what he wants now. That's the dilemma. That's the question. That's the unknown. Is the trip going to be a reason for improvement now? Or will he simply not stay? That's what you have to judge. Watch a few videos, try and weigh that up, and then against his price. And like I said, don't know what the market is at this point in time. So they're kind of different considerations. Beggar's Wishes is interesting, just because he's not, 24th runs. He's not overly raced for his age. He's clearly had an issue after his last start, hence why he's been off 500 plus days. Conditions are fine. His handicap mark is fine. He does have a touch of, kind of lesser class 2, I suppose, though this isn't a kind of superb class 2. This record after a break in terms of seasonal return was interesting, 3 from 3. He can clearly be readied at home. And, they keep the headgear, they keep the tongue tie. If he was here not to run his race, they wanted to get his mark down a bit more, or they thought he needed it, would you take those off? Just to provide a ready excuse to kind of, get the mark down further, legitimately, I suppose. There's something about him, given some of the things I touched on earlier. Beating Dolos, an okay animal, ridden out, that was off 142, although it wasn't a handicap. He's on 134 here. You can kind of look at, different things. He won a handicap chase, heavily eased off 132. That wasn't necessarily an awful race either. So there's some, you know, given his record fresh and the yard can ready them after long breaks, he will race prominently. I just wonder, because I've got a suspicion he might be put in at a big price. I suppose that's interesting. Obviously, he's got questions, 554 days off. The market will probably guide, but because of, you know, you can, because of the yard issues, ignore some form. Even back in early 19, I think just 2019, they struggled, and they struggled for, you know, first half of this year, if not up until recently. So yeah, so he's interesting to a point because he's been there, done it, but not overly raced, and the handicap mark is looking tempting. And I suspect he might be here to run his race. Then you've got Newland's kind of bottom rated horse race base. Beggar's Wishes will be down there on horse race base ratings because of that time off. Not because, you know, if he'd been running recently, a few runs in the last few months, I'd be more concerned because those ratings can be a guide, but that would be possibly the reason there. Although maybe I'm looking through rose tinted glasses because I'm edging that way, thinking he might be worth a go at a big price, if he's put in at a big price, of course. Rosie has plenty of questions. So, well, no, I say plenty of questions. Yes, a fitness question, class, ground. So there are a few kind of right-handed, a few questions there, but only the 6th chase. So any horse that's 5, fairly lightly raced over fences, you clearly, if your connections, looking at that, hope there may be more to come at some point. I always view Sedgefield form a bit kind of with scepticism, like I do Ludlow form, actually, to a bit, just because you always worry about question the depth and the quality of the racing, more so Sedgefield than Ludlow, arguably. So, you know, and he's got stamina to prove. So he's got quite a few questions, although the yard are in form. So you wouldn't fall off your seat because of his lightly race profile. But yeah, fitness, ground, trip, class, they're all things he has to prove. Well-being after those last kind of 3 runs, because soft clearly wasn't a problem. So, you know, all those kind of questions there, you're building into the assessment, you're building into the knowns, the unknowns, the questions, what they've got to prove, what they don't. Everything in here has some sort of question, and you're weighing that up when the market, well, you're weighing that up against the kind of price. You can make a judgment on the kind of price you think you want, or you can kind of get all those things in your head, and then when kind of odds checker and the market's formed, you can make a judgment against all those different things. So I've been talking long enough there, but hopefully I may have said something of interest. I do need to go through them kind of with a finer tooth comb, although I kind of have to a point. Watch a few videos, which is always worth doing if you've got the time, especially the last run, especially of those that are kind of arriving in form, or picking out some of the better runs from horses and watching those performances, and making an assessment on how they travelled, how they jumped, were they unlucky, a mistake at the wrong time, were they poorly positioned in the race, was the pace all wrong, etc., etc. Maybe that's a topic for another day. But yes, with that said, hopefully, yes, I've said something of interest and use, and you can kind of see how I start to think about things. But yeah, you are weighing up those kind of lightly raced, more to come, and some of you may have the opinion I just want to stick with that sort of profile. The red risks, Courtmaster, Newlands, they're the kind of lightly raced 3, properly lightly raced 3 over fences in this, arguably. And then you're weighing up those that have kind of shown more, been there and done it to a point, or still have questions but are well handicapped. Beggar's Wishes, Dan Skelton's, Luck of the Draw, well, back on last winning mark, not necessarily thrown in. Mellow Ben. So, you know, this kind of race is fascinating. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I'd be surprised if I don't come to a decision on backing something, given how much I've looked and stared at the race. I feel like I kind of have to. Where's the discipline? It might be I decide that it's actually too tough and I don't fancy anything. That might be a decision that you come to. We shall see. But yes, there's plenty there to ponder. It's quite a good little contest, really. It's a kind of puzzle-solving exercise and looks quite competitive with plenty of questions. Some will have a view whether or not that's a the kind of race you should be attacking or not. But everything's a game of, everything has a price, game of odds, and we shall see what is what, and if anything can lure you in and anything can lure me in at the odds. So with that said, I will be quiet and I will leave you to maybe ponder, maybe make a decision. But yes, this is Josh saying thanks for watching, and until the next time, bye for now.